All right, thanks everyone for joining this video. What we are doing is we made one of these last year. We've got iconic and underrated pre-code horror books in the the theme of Halloween, everything with October, and we've got Drew with CoMo Comics and Mickey with Swagglehaus Comics here, and we each picked a iconic cover artist from that time period that's known for doing these pre-code covers. And we're going to, in this video here, we are going to talk about 3 iconic books. If you want to see more books, make sure to go check out Mickey's channel and Drew's channel, and you're going to see 6 more iconic books as well as the underrated books we're going to go over in a separate video as well. So thanks guys for joining the channel. You ready to get into these books?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Let's do it.
All right. So not a lot of surprise for me. This year I picked L.B. Cole as my iconic pre-code cover artist. And for this first book here that I'm talking about, we've got Startling Terror Tales 11. Now, this one was published a little bit before we started getting all the super gruesome covers in 1953 and 54. So you could say maybe L.B. Cole was a little bit ahead of his time with this one. But this book has been getting a lot of attention lately. Now, it's not a unique character for L.B. Cole. He had the same spider skull character multiple years earlier, I think in around 1945 or 46 in Suspense Comics number 8. And this is just the ramped up, more violent version of that cover. The spider is larger on the page. It's the focal point. You've got these severed heads that are in its web. You've got some blood on them, everything. I mean, it's just a more violent cover. Now, some people like the more underrated Suspense Comics 8 a little bit more, but this one has definitely, it's kind of like the student surpassing the master. And this one has been getting more and more hype. And a big part of that has been some recent sales. So we had, if you watched our where Drew and Mickey and I were live streaming during the recent Comic Connect auction, there was a 6.5 of this book from the Bobby Blue collection that came up, and this was the last book to sell in that day, and it just kept going and going. And I had thought it was going to sell for around 15 or 16,000, ended up selling for $33,350. Just a massive sale for this book. And then that triggered additional sales, including the most recent one there, the 1.5 that sold for $2,750, which was actually a copy that I owned. And so, I mean, that's what happens a lot of times, especially with these golden age books, where you have a big marquee sale and it impacts other grades and it impacts other books that are available for sale. And they just, people start trying to grab them up because they're worried they won't be able to get one. Now, with this one, I am very interested to see what ultimately ends up happening with it, to see if we have a comparable grade come up for sale again, and if it sells for around the same price, or if it has a big cut, like if this was just a lot of hype around an auction and that's what drove it. But definitely, if somebody is willing to pay $5,000, and it's an auction, so 2 somebodies at least were willing to pay $5,000 a point for this book, this has become a serious contender in the iconic books, not just for L.B. Cole, but across all artists. Now, the other thing to be aware of with this one is that you'll see in the coloring around terror on this, it's blue. This is the most common cover that you'll see for this book. There's also what we'll call a variant. And so even back in the, in the 50s, we had these variant covers, and the variant is more expensive, just like it often is today. And the variant is black, where it's black behind that. And it was actually a printing error. It was supposed to be blue. The first approximately 10% of copies that were printed came out as black. They fixed it and then they changed it to blue. And so that variant sells for a lot of money. And so if you ever see a really high grade copy of the variant come up, I don't even know if one exists. It'd be really interesting to see what that goes for too. But yeah, so Mickey, what do you think about this iconic L.B. Cole Startling Terror Tales 11?
Yeah, this is a very, very expensive second print for a book. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's a classic L.B. Cole cover. I mean, he's got so many, that are in this sort of like iconic bucket. I think at this point now, But this one, it certainly comes to mind. It's got all the things that you want from him. It's got his primary color palette. It's got, you know, a great looking skull on it. It's got some trippy, you know, I don't know, like this guy's doing a lot of acid and just coming up with some really weird stuff. And then you have like, you know, this beautiful woman on it as well. So I think it just kind of hits like sort of all of the things that people would like with this one. And it's really crazy to see, just like you said, I mean, how things become super downstream where, you know, big sales beget big sales, and the price just continues to go up and up with all these things, and it's a certain type of FOMO that happens within sort of the golden age collector market with this one, and I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, well, when we continue this series, you know, so sometime like next year and the year after that, if we ever start to revisit some of these artists, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these numbers are even bigger for LB Cole and just starting Terror Tales. I mean, what can you say about it? I mean, it's just a book that can't be stopped, and we'll have to keep our eye out on if more come to auction, what they end up going for. But yeah, Drew, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd really like to see one of those black variants come up just to see what happens. Now that it's something that's on my radar, because I didn't know that was a thing until we did those live streams either. So looking at pictures of them, I like the blue better. I think the blue obviously was the intended choice, because you kind of lose tails in the trade dress, but you know, it's still one of those fun things. And yeah, I guess we do have to admit that variants have always been around, but I mean, this book just makes me want to read it. The Ghost Spider of Death. Who doesn't want to read that story, you know? And whether it's a recycled element or not, that is just some great graphic design. Like, it's unsettling as all hell looking at this spider. You know, you got the guy that's already dead. You got the lady who's struggling, trying to get away. You got dead people's faces staring at you. I mean, I was born in the wrong decade, guys. Like, I was meant to be buying this stuff off the stand and reading it and just, you know, crying when my mom found it and threw it in the burn pile. So I guess I missed out on that trauma at least, but no, I think it's a great book, and there's no list with LB Cole pre-code horror books on it out there that's not going to include this one.
Yeah, and for me, even before I really knew that this was like before I was really into LB Cole and getting more into the pre-code horror stuff, I bought a copy of this one a few years ago, and it was just because it caught my attention. It's one of those things where it's like, not even knowing that this was a well-known or popular book. Like, I saw this thing, I'm like, that is a wild cover. And that's one of the things that often that's how I evaluate pre-code horror books. Like, I'll scan through a whole bunch of images and covers and I'll just like pick out the ones that just grab me. And this is one of those that just does that.
Yeah. And I think it's fair to say, you know, if something grabs you, it's likely going to grab other people as well. And so there's a reason for that. And that's why the numbers are so high.
Absolutely. Yep. But great pick.
All right. So now let's move on to the iconic book number 2.
Yeah. Well, this one belongs to me. My artist this year was Bernard Bailey. And I think that this one is fitting of his iconic works. But of course, we're talking about Mr. Mystery number 12 from July of 1953. The iconic eye injury cover, I guess you could describe it as, or the eyeball cover, or the, I don't know if it's a needle or a knife going to this gentleman's retina, but looks uncomfortable either way. But this is just kind of like a really, really sort of iconic and classic book that a lot of PCH collectors like to pick up. I think with some of the numbers here, you can see Census has it 67 universal copies, a 1.0 as the most recent 1.0 sale. The buy-in price for this book is that $2,999 sale right there. So $3,000 just to get into the club. 6.0, 14,376, and then an 8.0 sold for 36,000, and that's the personal best, as I like to put it, for this particular book. And yeah, I think Bernard Bailey he does some really, really great close-up work, I think, with a lot of his covers. He's got some great heads and faces and things like that. So there's a lot of detail in this. And, this being the zoomed in version of his eyeball, I think makes this one of his most notable works. And you can see from the prices that people really like picking this one up. So yeah, it's my second iconic book for him. But yeah, Drew or Ryan, I don't know if you have anything to add or say.
For me, I think Mr. Mystery is such a great pre-code horror title that oftentimes gets overshadowed in a lot of ways by some of the other more outlandish pre-code horror issues and titles that are out there. But it's just this one being the most notorious from the title. There's just so much great stuff that happens in that. And I don't think that anybody can look at this and not be unnerved a certain amount. Like eye damage, like eye terror is such just a visceral thing. I don't think you can contemplate it and not just get the heebie-jeebies a little bit. But no, I love this book. I think this is one I've maybe seen once or twice in real life, because it's just, it's on everybody's want list. So when it does pop up, if people have the ability, they're going to take it home. But yeah, it's icky.
For me, I've never seen this one in person. It's one of those books I haven't seen it at a show. I've never owned a copy. I'm the same way though. I don't know what's going to hit his eye. I don't know if it's a needle. I don't know if he was like welding, and this is like some
like a blacksmith
that's like coming back at him or what. But in the in one of our other videos, it was mentioned on his work that he does on the eyes, and like you can just tell, like he really does put the detail into the eye, can really draw that, the fear into an eye, like into a face. Like you can sense the fear that this guy is like, oh crap, I am about to not be able to see out of this one anymore. But I mean, yeah, the numbers on this book are really astounding. It has gotten much more attention over the last few years with a 1.0, $3,000 just to get in the door.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. And the interesting thing to me was, like, for some reason I had thought that for a while that this was a Lee Elias cover. And it's just like, for some reason, it just always struck me as that. I didn't realize it was a Bailey cover. So I thought, I mean, just little things like when you dig into these a little bit more, and because there's so many great covers out there, like there's always little things that you learn no matter how long you've been looking at these, these different books.
Yeah, it's hard to fit them all in. I mean, there's just so many.
And so many just little teeny tiny publishers. I mean, even look at Mask, it's 2 issues, but there's just everybody hopped on the bandwagon. And I don't know how you ever get to the point where you've, educated yourself on 100% of all the available pre-code horror. That's what makes it so fun.
Yeah,
that's definitely one of the tricky parts with Golden Age and pre-code horror, that kind of stuff, is the variety of publishers. I mean, when you get to Silver, Bronze, Modern, I mean, yeah, there are the independents, but predominantly it's DC and Marvel. Yeah. But when you go to Golden Age, I mean, DC and Timely are just 2 of many. Mm-hmm. I mean, like you had mentioned Mask, I think that's like rural publications or something like that. And I think the suspense books are like Continental. I mean, it's just all these publishers that nobody knows anymore, and so there's so much variety during that time period. All right, are we ready to move on to book number 3?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm excited about this one. My artist was Don Heck. He's a guy a lot of us know from Marvel in the Silver Age, but he started out way back in the 50s. And he focused primarily on 2 titles. He had Horrific and Weird Terror were the main places you're going to find Don Heck horror. I mentioned that in one of the earlier videos, but this Weird Terror 7 is haunting to me. One of the things we've talked about is his perspective. It's not just, here's some stuff on the cover, it's spooky, it's creepy, whatever. on a lot of Don Heck stuff, you are in the action. And on this particular cover with Weird Tier 7, you're in the furnace, you're in the fireplace, you're in the whatever it is. And it's about to, well, I guess you could say it's already going bad for you at this point because you got a crazy guy with a shovel standing over you getting ready to shut the door. But yeah, I don't even know where to start with this one. It's such just a crazy cover. Again, 1953 comes up. At this point, it's no holds barred. Guys are just throwing anything against the wall and it's all sticking. But this is one of the more moderately priced or moderately valued books from Heck's offerings across these couple titles. You can get in the door at a 2.0. Last sale was back in August for just $432, which again is pretty affordable when it comes to pre-code horror. Back in, I believe that's mid-July, we had a 6.5 sale for under $3,000 at $28.80. That's a pretty decent book. You know, mid-grade is tough in a lot of these things. So to be, you know, under $3,000 and a 6.5, it's a pretty low investment for that quality of a book. And then a 4.5, you're looking at $1,700 from last December. So really, you can get a pretty decent copy of this without really busting the bank. And it kind of comes back to some of the things we've already mentioned. You know, you've got a little bit of almost like a picture frame vibe where the trade dress is just in this black background, which is probably just the top of the inside of this furnace or whatever, but you've got the flames around the edge, which kind of give it like a picture frame vibe. It's definitely focusing where you need to look and where the action is, but it's just another great atmospheric and kind of creepy vibe coming out of Don Heck, which is why, you know, it's a book that resonates for people who collect pre-code horror, in my opinion.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, I actually just got a copy of this book back from CGC a couple weeks ago. And so I got a 5.5 of it. And yeah, this book looks incredible in person. I mean, when like you said, like the black backgrounds and the flames and everything. And in it, if you like kind of look at the guy who's doing the shoveling, like he's got like this blue painted or colored around his eyes that just really, you know, just he looks like he's not in a normal state of mind.
He does crazy eyes really well, doesn't he?
Well, he's doing that, but yeah, I mean, and part of the reason I talked about this, you know, in the last one, like when I saw this book for sale in a live sale, and it grabs your attention. You know, it's just one of those things that's how I like to evaluate a lot of these books. And this one it does that. And because I've had people comment on that with pre-code horror and Golden Age before, where they go, oh, you know, there's nothing like key about this book. There's no first appearance in there or anything, you know, and it's like, that's not the way the Golden Age really works. Golden Age is, I mean, yeah, you've got the key things, but those books are hundreds of thousands of dollars or $1 million.
Yep.
So then it becomes covers. Like covers are one of the main driving factors for the Golden Age. And when you've got these ones that just grab you like that, it's not just going to be you know, a lot of people are going to be interested in that.
Yeah. I mean, it's art appreciation, right? At that point, you know, you're just looking at it, you're saying, man, you know, Don Heck drew this. He thought of this. He created the furnace to be the frame, you know, and yeah, it's just something that it just catches your eye. I mean, it's like he just spent time, you know, coming up with the composition and everything, and it's messed up and it's cool all at the same time. And he definitely did some very good, like, you know, sickly looking zombie people. And I don't know, in that thought experiment of what would be the worst way to go, I feel like this is pretty high up there.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
getting put in a furnace.
He was already dead before he
Let's hope.
Yeah. Let's hope, because I feel like, you know, from my POV, as we've talked about with his art style, it feels like, I don't know. I mean, maybe he's still feeling it a little bit.
I don't know.
But yeah, pretty bad way to go, and a really, really cool, gruesome PCH cover. So yeah, good pick and very iconic book.
And to just dive back into the details, like if you look past the creepy guy, you can tell this is obviously you're in a basement. You know, you got like a broken basement window. You can see the stairs coming down. So it's things like this where you understand why Kevin McAllister was terrified of his basement at the beginning of Home Alone. It's like,
and that furnace. You know,
I know, right? It's just like this is why kids are scared of furnaces and basements.
No one
It's all
is coming
Don
to
Heck's
save
fault.
you.
All right, so those are the three iconic books that we were talking about from three iconic artists in this video. Hope everybody enjoyed this. If you want to see the other books, the undervalued books that we're also going to be releasing, make sure to go check out Swagglehaus Comics and CoMo Comics for the videos on their channels. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining this channel, and we will see you on the next one. Trying to think if I want to do my intro here so I just don't have to set up and film another one.
The answer is yes. The answer is
No,
yes.
Yeah.
And
You guys
that's
are
what I'm gonna try
smart.
to do.
I'm dumb. Go ahead.
I'm going to try to do it. Yeah.